Part 26. Learning Saxophone. The pastor of my church recommended a saxophone to me. When I was young, I wanted to play the saxophone, but I started learning it in my mid-50s. In my 20s, I wanted to learn the saxophone to enjoy romance. Over the years, my motivation to learn saxophone changed. In the past, there were theater-style bars in Mugyeodong, Seoul. The representative theater bars were World Cup and Empire. When I dined with my colleagues from work, I used to go along with my staff, where a musician played the saxophone. At that time, the saxophone was a rare instrument. Over the years, I now had a chance to learn saxophone. In France, there were three things to be considered middle class: people who have a house, play a musical instrument, and do volunteer work. Now, as many people's quality of life in Korea has risen, it seems that more people are learning to play musical instruments. In my case, I have been so busy that I cannot afford to consider other unfortunate people. Dreaming of utopia, I have never done anything but write a few diaries. My reasoning now to learn is to play the saxophone to please the elderly, who are suffering from serious diseases such as dementia and live lonely lives in their old age. I wanted to honor my dead parents through music service. During my music service, I also wanted to do Christian missions. I practiced saxophone by attending an academy in the evening for 5 years when I worked in the provinces. After retirement, I went to a club and practiced saxophone, and then 10 years passed. When playing the saxophone, the sound of the instrument is so loud that it is difficult to play in a house adjacent to the neighborhood. A few years later, I recommended learning the saxophone to my wife. I thought it would be good to play the saxophone and do music service together. My wife, who did not pay much attention to the instrument at first, is now more into the saxophone than her literature. Saxophone is a good instrument to learn in middle age. It resembles human vocal cords and can change the pitch when played. We can make a very sweet and beautiful sound with it. Because the sound coming from the instrument is loud, the performance effect is good. As a child, I enjoyed relaxing by playing the harmonica, and now I try to soothe my mind while playing the saxophone. Sometimes I cry when I play it. Every time I play the Rainy Gomorrong, tears come to my eyes and I cannot play the song properly, because the lyrics in the first sentence remind me of my mother. I always play hymns as well as popular songs. I feel guilty when I play the gospel song, When I Wander Around in the World. The song seems to be made for me, so I often shed tears. In the future, I have to handle with the spirit of service without shedding tears, but I am worried, because as I got older, I shed tears more and more. When I had just learned the saxophone, I started to do music service. At that time, a friend of my wife introduced me to a seniors welfare center for music service. Even though I was poor at playing, I tried to do music service with courage. I wanted to play hymns as well as old popular songs. Before my service, I called a social worker. I said I only had been learning the saxophone for a year and a half and asked if it would be okay. I also asked if I could play a hymn. The social worker gave me a chance to serve. However, she could not recommend me playing hymns at the center. On the first day of music service, I began to play the old popular song, The Rainy Gomorrong, with the music score on the music stand. When I released my grip and left my mother, at that moment, I could not continue playing because I was choked with tears. I seemed to have made the wrong choice with the first song. Older people sitting in front of me looked like my mother and her friends. I played with the hope that my mother in heaven would listen to the sound of the music. Usually, I don't want to play the song, The Rainy Gomorrong. The lyrics of the song, When I Released My Grip and Left My Mother, make me cry. It is partly because I am tender-hearted, but most of all, I feel so overwhelmed when I think of my mother. She never really lived a single day in her life and has passed away. The music service I tried to do for the poor old people was probably a way to solve the sorrow that was in my heart. I would like to believe that my father, who taught me old songs before I entered elementary school, can now listen to my saxophone with an easy mind. After that, I went to the Seniors Welfare Center for an hour every month for a year and a half. I practiced old songs as hard as my school homework to go to the center. Fortunately, I could do music volunteer work easily because old songs are like my major. The tears I shed from playing the first song on the first day were not from my grief. I was so thrilled and happy at the meeting. I could picture my mother there again, and I enjoyed giving joy to the underprivileged through music service. I was really happy when I was doing volunteer work playing musical instruments at the Seniors Welfare Center. I felt anew that happiness was not in a lot of money, but in my heart. I felt a sense of happiness and satisfaction that I had never felt when I was running around all day and night to keep my place and to succeed. It was a pity that I did not experience this world earlier.